Welcome to the February edition of BBRO BeetCast. I'm Francesca Broom, your host and Knowledge Exchange Manager for BBRO. Well, it's time for a little bit of celebrations because, believe it or not, this is the 50th edition of BBRO BeetCast, and it's time for a little bit of a revamp. So from now on, you will find that releases will be in the mid of the month and presented in 3 clear sections. We're going to begin with our main feature topic, which this month is focusing on the launch of the new style recommended list for 2027. Next, we'll share a timely crop management reminder linked to our Beat Your Best initiative. And finally, we're going to round things off with a short in-action segment where we'll catch up with the wider BBRO team and our industry partners to highlight what they're working on. So let's jump straight in and find out why are we talking about the RL for 2027 in February 2026, what's changed, and why is it important to UK growers.
So hopefully some of you have joined us for our recent BeatTech events where you'll have seen Professor Mark Stevens talking about the RL 2026 that was actually on the website we've just launched, and also introducing the launch of the 2027, which is now available. So I'm very pleased to be joined here this morning with Professor Mark Stevens and Stephen Aldous. Welcome both.
Morning, Chairs.
Morning, Chairs.
And we're going to discuss the 2027 RL because there is quite a lot going on, isn't there? So, Mark, how many new varieties have we got?
Yes, we've, as you've quite rightly said, just launched the 2027 BBRO recommended list. And this year, there are 35 varieties on that list. And you've just highlighted that we've just completed the BBRO BeatTech Winter Conferences, and we were able to update everyone who was in attendance. And if you weren't there, an opportunity to catch up via the recordings that are now on the BBRO website to see what we were talking about. But basically, in essence, BBRO, through the recommended list process, is now testing the product you grow on farm rather than just the genetic potential of a variety. What do I really mean by that is, well, this year we are actually launching on the RL a package. So it includes the genetics like before, but we now also include the commercial priming of that seed, along with commercial pellets, and all the trials that are sown are now drilled to a stand. Whereas before, it would have been the genetics with no priming, with a prescribed pellet, and we had the option, if needed, to double drill those varieties and gap appropriately. So the 2025 is a transition year with regard to methodology, but what it's trying to do is make sure that we are assessing the material that you are growing on farm rather than just the straight genetic.
The 2025 trials were actually the start of this change, but what does that actually mean in the way of delivery? So, Stephen, you've been involved on the trial side.
Yeah, so whilst you don't see it until the 2027 list, obviously the data has to come first. So we're already a year through this new set of trials, and it's changed in several ways. So obviously, as Mark said, we've switched over to a primed and pelleted seed, which in itself doesn't make any difference to us. It was always in a pellet before, but just a generic pellet in itself. But now we have a second entry from Germain's for some of the varieties, which you'll see on the list now. Obviously, a long-standing supplier to the UK market, so we're testing that material. And as Mark said, we're now drilling to what we call a stand, so no double sowing. This was historically done for early seed for new varieties, as the germination might not be as good, but also used where we had concerns over establishment. So we had it as an option for the trials operators to double drill if we had any concerns. And because we've now removed that option, we are actually sowing more trials to ensure we get enough trial data to feed the RL tables. So we're now up to 10 sites to feed that. So that's the main treated table that you see year in, year out. We've also carried on with the untreated table. So the disease data you see on the table comes from a set of RL trials that aren't treated with fungicides to try and ensure that we get levels of infection to produce that data each year. And then the other addition for us as trials operators is we're now doing a late lift. For as long as I've been in the beet industry, we've had questions from late lift growers, so anyone post-Christmas really, saying does the variety information stack up for January, February, March lifting? We're now doing a late lift in January, so there's an additional 4 trials that carry on past the deadline for the crop committee and the table being published, but we will publish that data as supplementary for those growers that have an interest in that later lifting window.
And when do you think that data will become available?
So although it's obviously only a 1-year list, and want to make sure that's very clear to everyone, it's not the 3-year averages that you're used to seeing, because obviously we've only just started this process. That list will be published alongside this year's 2027 RL table.
And you said about the RL being over 10 sites this year, but by the sound of it, there's an awful lot more work behind the scenes going on. How many trial plots are we actually looking at?
It varies massively. We're up to 18 trials in themselves, just for the 3 I've talked about. It depends how many candidates we get coming in from the breeders. That has a huge impact on how big the trials are. Obviously, the addition of a second pellet has increased the trial size, so more plots going through the harvester and the plot building and the tear house. We also have the early sown bolter trials. So that's a very challenging set of trials, which NIAB mainly conduct for us. And they actually start drilling those on the 15th of Feb. And as we're sat here today, we're already a bit late due to the wet weather. The data that you'll see in 2 years' time is hopefully going in the ground later this week. So yeah, it's definitely keeping us busy.
And I do understand you actually got an advert out at the moment for a new trials officer.
Nice segue there, Chairs. Yeah, one of our team is heading back to the family farm. So yeah, we do have an open position for a trials position. So yeah, if anyone's interested.
Yeah, please have a look at our website. So Mark, you've got all these different varieties. So why have we got so many extras this year? I mean, does it mean that the changes have encouraged more varieties onto the list? Have we changed the parameters as to why they're there?
Good question, Chez. Clearly, we as a BBRO recommended this committee when we meet in December to make these decisions. We have a set guide of parameters that we review, and it's a very structured procedure which we've followed, and that has led to, there's been a number of entries that have come from all the seed houses, and the analysis of those has led to an increase in the number of entries coming in there. We also, what is encouraging, is we're seeing an increasing number of traits or stack traits, which are built on top of your performance and sugar and early sown bolter, which have been, important parameters. But as we go into the future, we're seeing more varieties called Beetus nematodes, Cercospora, virus yellows, which is personally really encouraging and exciting for me as somebody who's worked on virus yellows for a number of years, but also ALS. The need for aggressive rhizomania strain resistance. And what we're starting to see is the Beetus nematode ALS combination as well, giving stacked trait varieties, which we know that some growers need and have been requesting. So that has also added to the list, which has led to the numbers that we now have for 2027.
And when it comes to the stacked traits, with the new website, it's quite easy for growers to be able to actually challenge that and have a look at what's available, isn't it?
Yep, definitely. Obviously it is a positive. We are seeing more entries onto the list, and those varieties do have unique selling points. But obviously we want to try and make it as easy for you as growers to sort through those. So rather than just the static PDF that you've probably been used to, the new website does offer some search functionality, and the main criteria of that being those traits. So like I said, we could stack... we could hit the criteria for ALS resistance and BCN, and obviously it would bring up those entries that are available to you. Equally, things like early sowing are options on there as well, so you get a full profile of what you want to look at.
And in the past, we always had a number of different tables. So in order to see the 3-year data, you had to look at a different table. It's all been integrated now. So actually, if you pick the ones you want to compare, there's a little drop-down box. You can click on that and you'll get 3 years data. So that's a real bonus to anyone looking at previous performance.
Yeah, and probably more so than ever, actually. For example, with a candidate variety that's come on this year, so one of the new ones that we're probably about to talk about, you would have 2 years of VL data, so that's the National Variety Listing Trials, and 1 year of RL data. Whilst we have always kept the prime and pelleting rules the same between the two trial sets, that has now obviously changed in that the RL has moved over to a commercial prime and pellet. So actually, within those 3 years, you've got two different prime and pellet technologies. So if you as a grower want to look at how that changes, so whether in this instance it would be from year 2 to year 3, you could see if the performance changes at all. But obviously, as we go forward, you'll have more and more data from the RL with those commercial treatments building up that data set.
It's a game changer having that functionality and an ability to search. If we were to have an A4 piece of paper with 35 varieties, with some of them with 2 pellets, you're probably looking at a size 4 font. The option now is to have that search function on there. You can see everything so much easier and hopefully gives you the confidence and something you've been requesting for some time. So it does make life a lot easier, particularly as we go into the future as well with more traits, more stacking, more combinations. We needed this functionality to hopefully give you the confidence to be able to do that.
And that's great news, isn't it? But I know there's certainly some of the varieties have actually been quite exciting for you when you've looked at the data. Is there any in particular that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I suppose we probably ought to go through everything on the list. Yep. But top of the list for 2027 remains BTS 1915. It's a year 7 variety, a control variety. And what you'll notice straight away from that particular variety, it's actually on there twice, because what you have is the BTS 1950 with the BTS commercial pellet, but also the Germain's pellet as well. And so that's the beginning of this particular change. And you'll see that reflected where a company has looked at both their own commercial pellet and the Germain's pellet. That variety will be seen twice. What you also notice from the 2027 list is it's changed in its format. So the varieties now run from top to bottom, and all the different traits are run across the top, which is different to how they would have been in 2026 and previous years. So that's the first variety. Then I'll hand over to Stephen, because if you're going to, position 2 is actually occupied by a new variety.
Yep. So the top of the list has been fairly static for a few years now, with the top 5 being very stable. But we do have a breakthrough entry from Struber this year, and that's ST Rotterdam. So that comes in at position 2. Again, it's got the Germain's entry with it. So you have the 2 there. And just for clarity, and the RL is very much detail-based game for us. So the ranking along that list is based on the highest performer of the 2. So if they have their own pellet and a Germain's, the ranking on that list, and they'll always be paired together, will be based on the highest performer of the 2, if you're curious.
Thanks, Stephen. That clarifies that point. And then in position 3 is a variety you've been familiar with, Keimer KWS, year 3 now. And you'll notice that you've got it duplicated with the Germain's pellet first and in-house pellet in second position. And then we move on to a Cess van der Haaf variety, year 2, which is Antler, which some of you will have seen on farm in the last 12 months.
Again, one of those longer serving varieties is Harrietta. So the first of the BCN varieties there. So that's now a year 5 variety, and doing very well still.
And then the next variety is Possum, a new variety from Cess van der Haaf in year 1. It's a conventional variety that has come onto the list for 2027.
Picking up some of the longer serving varieties, we're back to Kachana. So that's now a year 6, also BCN from KWS. And then we actually move on to a stalwart of the RL table in Daphne, now a year 10. So exceptional long service there and still performing well. Again, both of those coming with a Germain's offering too.
And then the next, and it's a new variety, is Partridge, another from the Cess van der Haaf stable, a year 1 entry that will come on for growing for 2027.
Okay, we then pick up some Struber offerings with Morgan and Tweed. So a year 5 and a year 3. Tweed did pick up the special trait claim for virus yellows last year, so still performing well.
And then back to a year 1 new variety from Cess van der Haaf, the variety Pintail, which is also a beet-cyst nematode tolerant variety as well.
So another conventional variety now in Josephina, so a year 3 from KWS, again offered in a Germain's pellet as well.
And then we have 3 new varieties that are cheek by jowl on the RL list. We have these 3 from Cess van der Haave: Mallard, Petrel and Grouse. Of those 3, Mallard is also a beet cyst nematode tolerant variety. Petrel and Grouse are conventional varieties.
So on to a BCN offering from Struber in Button. Again, now a year 5, so most of you will have some experience of that. If you're looking for a BCN variety, again, offered with a Germain's pellet too.
And then the next 2 come both from the Cess van der Haave stable again. 2 new conventional varieties, Curlew and Snipe.
Back to a BCN variety for me with Hoopoe from Cess, so that's now a year 2.
And then we have the first new entry from BTS Limagrain. We have BTS 7870. And this is the first new entry on the 2027 list with a Virus Yellows trait claim to add to the others that we already have on the list.
So now moving into some Cess material, we have Magpie. We also have Aslan, which is Hillshog but distributed by Cess. And Gadwall, all in there as conventional varieties, all suitable for early drilling.
And then we have a special trait year 2 entry from KWS, the Generosa, which came onto the list 12 months ago. That has the Virus Yellows trait claim and is available in the 2 pallets, as you'll see on the list.
The next offering in that stable is Nitschke from KWS again, and that also has a VY trait claim.
And then we have Smart Uma KWS. It's a year 3 entry, and it has, the smart technology, so ALS resistance.
Yep, and then as Mark alluded to earlier with some of the claims is AYPR. So as part of the RL, we always maintain an AYPR tolerant variety on the list, and that currently is Offspray from Cess van der Haave. Now a year 4, so fairly stable there in that offering.
And then we have a block of 3 new varieties, special year 1 entries, in the fact that they all have ALS resistance. So the first of those 3 is Smart Agneta KWS. And then the next 2 are both from the BTS Limagrain stable. So you have BTS Smart 8565 and BTS Smart 4960. As I said, both with the ALS trait claim.
We're really building up the number of ALS tolerant varieties on the list, and you can see this is partly the reason the list is getting longer. We still have Smart Besnica from KWS. That's now a year 4. Again, so a lot of you will have experience if Conviso is something you require on farm.
And then we have the BTS Smart 9485 from Limagrain. That's now a year 5 entry. And then we have the last 2 entries, both interesting in the fact they are stacked traits. So we have a new entry for 2027. We have the Smart Attila KWS year 1, which has both beet cyst nematode and ALS. And then the final entry of the 35 is the year 2 Smart Nelda KWS, which also has the BCN ALS trait stack.
I didn't pick up on it too much as we went through, but obviously one of the big things we try and draw attention to is the ESB score. So you'll see the red crosses appearing, which is a data-driven number saying that it's not suitable for early sowing. But as you can imagine, with all those smart varieties we just listed, there are more purple crosses than ever before. And again, that's either data-driven or a request by the breeder not to sow that material early as we look to protect that Conviso technology.
Now, I think that was very smoothly done. It took me back to a Sunday night and listening to Top of the Pops. I just wish we'd done a 40 countdown or something. So next year I might add a bit of music to the background of that one. But
maybe we'll make it a video for you to see if there's...
As only if you're going to dance, Stephen. No, thank you very much for that. So obviously 2027 RL now out. But what time are we looking at for seed order? Because obviously we've introduced this much earlier this year.
Yeah, so many reasons there really. So honestly, with the changes to the seed account, you are able to buy candidates. So growers on farm may be now connecting the dots that they've already bought some of this material that we're talking about. And the idea is we want to offer you the data on that materials. mainly from my point of view, the disease scoring and also that early sown bolter information, when's it suitable for sowing, etc. So hopefully if you have bought small amounts of that seed, you've now got the information to go with it before you drill it. With regard to availability, that's where we draw the line. Obviously, that's a discussion with the seed account or with the breeder who's supplying it. But obviously, you do have that option if they have got seed in production and ready to go.
Yeah, to the best of our ability, what we're trying to do is get the list out as early as possible. So where growers are looking at growing some of these in the next sort of few months, they've got all the information at their fingertips. They can now go onto the BBRO new website and that interactive platform, which makes life so much easier as well for comparisons.
That's great. Hopefully growers will now spend some time and have a look on our new website. There's much more to see than just the RL list, so do have a little look around and let us know your thoughts. And I'd just like to thank you both for your time.
Thank you, Jez.
Now, it'd be remiss of me not to mention that February also included Mind Your Headspace Week, which encourages farmers to pause and take a moment for themselves. Easier said than done. However, we do hope that the new BBRO Beat Your Best initiative will offer some support by providing timely reminders and prompts throughout the year. These may provide a nudge to take action or provide an opportunity to congratulate yourself on a job well done. Let's hear more from Stephen.
So, Stephen, you're back in the hot seat. So I was just wondering, Beat Your Best. We launched our recent BTech events, but what is the thinking behind this new initiative?
Well, I'm sure I won't cover it all off, but I think for today, it was a chance for us to restructure all of our KE. Yeah, all our information grows over time. We add a topic here, add a topic there, and Beat Your Best was the time to have a bit of a reset, a bit of a greenfield site sort of thinking. How would we do this? We broke it down to 10 main topics, which we think covers all of the agronomic principles of growing sugar beet. And then we will release these as the season progresses. And there's some color coding and imagery to help you direct through whether it's BeetCast, whether it's the fat files that we've also added at this time, or bulletins, etc. It'll just give you an easy way to navigate through all of the information that BBRO has to offer.
Yeah, and there's going to be quite a lot that we'll actually be able to generate, but it's going to be timely releases, isn't it? So particularly at the moment, we're looking at drilling, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. So for those at BeetTech, I did jump the gun and talked about hygiene. Obviously, soil preparation would be one of the early topics as well. But as we find ourselves now coming into March, drilling is very much the topic we want to talk about. Obviously, we covered that off with the drill training events that we run, and encourage anyone to check out those videos and information from that as well. But yeah, the main difference for Beat Your Best that you'll see as the topics are launched is that we're actually asking questions as well as delivering information to you. And the questions are just designed to get you thinking about, have I actually done that? Am I on top of this? Etc., etc.
So it's almost like a hand-holding exercise to just get people to stop and think, are they delivering the best they can to get the most out of their yield?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to admit to hand-holding with 3,000 farmers, but yeah, it's a very quick-paced industry, and hopefully it's just one of those things to prompt your memory, a bit of a reminder or something new that's come out that we're asking, have you looked into this? You may have taken on a new block of land, and there might be something that you need to look at that it's been assumed knowledge previously, and it's actually, I better tick that off to make sure I know what I'm getting into.
So over to drilling then. So what is one of the key points to remind people about drilling?
With a lot of these messages, sometimes it feels too basic, but essentially, is your equipment ready to go? You might think they're fairly simple in principle, but making sure that parts are replaced when needed. Drill testing used to be something we'd really promote as BBRO, and previous to that, British Sugar would as well. And there was belt testing, and you'd send your units off. There's less and less of that now with the modern drills that we're using. But nonetheless, there are checks you can do. Make sure your parts, whether it's your seed discs, whether it's your coulters, etc., press wheels, are all in tolerance, all running well. Because the last thing we want when the weather does turn right for us is that we're delayed due to machinery maintenance, or equally that the performance of the drill isn't as good as it should be, and we're not getting that depth, that singulation, the things we need to get a good consistent crop.
And it's checking that maintenance is there before the machine goes in the field, but also once it gets into the field, making sure that it's actually delivering the seed where you're expecting it.
Yep. So question 2 and 3 very much relate to that. So question 2 is your drill set up to match field conditions? Again, whether it's changing soil type, maybe that field's being in a different rotation, maybe there's more residue. Again, whether it's cultivated in a different way, it's all about making sure your operator is confident to make those changes on as they go. We should really be looking at our drill setup on a field by field basis. Or equally, if you know you've got variable conditions within a field, how are you breaking that field up? Are you compromising one end of the field to the other? If so, have you made the right balance there to get the best establishment possible?
And would you also say there's a difference between the machines that you're actually using?
Yeah, definitely, and probably more so than we've potentially ever had. So if I think of a classic beet drill, your Stanhay Webbs moving into your Cabernet monopils, that type of thing, a very lightweight traditional beet drill. We're now seeing more of these hybrid machines, so your Vardestad Tempos, Horsch Maestros, very different weight range, different metering systems, and probably a very different tractor on the front as well. So we just need to be considerate of wheelings, compaction. I always use the example, a tractor on conventional wheels on a 12-row beet drill, you're probably drilling into 4 rows into a wheeling. So that's a third of my beet crop is drilled into a wheeling. Have I done everything possible to either prevent that compaction or relieve that compaction to make sure I'm still getting a good stand in that area? Equally, that leads nicely into seed depth. And again, just being aware that you're drilling into different conditions behind the machine, whether it's behind the wheeling or not. Have I set up each of those units, one, to achieve the depth I want? And now we have more and more availability of down pressure. So whether that's hydraulic or a mechanical spring, have I adjusted my pressure to maintain my seed depth? One of my biggest messages to anyone that's investing in those heavier hybrid type drills is actually that down pressure can become a negative. We might think increasing down pressure again and again keeps that row unit nice and stable, which it does. But equally, if I put too much excess downforce through those side depth wheels, I'm compacting my seeding zone. We would call that sidewall compaction. And obviously we've spent hours over the last months creating ourselves a lovely seed bed. The last thing we want to do is create compaction in the very area where we want to avoid it. So excess down pressure can be an issue as well.
And also managing that with the weather conditions and actually making those decisions on a field by field basis is very important, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And a shower overnight can suddenly change your seed bed and how you want to set up that drill. Patience is invaluable, and rushing in when conditions are slightly wet. One thing I always pick up on is seed firmers. So whether that's a wheel or a finger running in the seed trench, if you suddenly got excess moisture, you can be smearing that trench and actually having a negative impact on our drilling conditions.
So it's moisture, it's soil temperature.
Yeah, it's so many things. I mean, once you've made the decision to start drilling, you're committed. So obviously looking ahead to the forecast, we're all aware of the problem of bolting. We want to make sure we're not drilling with a large number of frosts on the forecast, but sometimes these things happen. Obviously, that's why variety selection is so important. But the conditions on the day aren't everything. It's also what's going to happen in the next week, two weeks, is what would help me make my decision if I'm going or not going.
And you've mentioned variety. Obviously, we've just done the RL. One of the bugbears of our plant clinic, I know, is people knowing what seed they put where. How important is that to document that when you're drilling?
Yeah, massively. Obviously, we also drill the SKU reference trials. So we have a reference point of every SKU that should be drilled out in the UK each year. So if you have an issue, we've got a reference point to go to and it can help with any concerns. But if you don't know what's in the drill, it's hard to follow that up and know where the problem was. Or equally, on a positive note, if something's done really well for you, isn't it good to know which variety that was for future reference if you want to choose it again? So yeah, definitely making sure drills are cleaned out, switched over, and then marking the field, whether physically in the field or on a map, dropping a pin, saying what that variety was. Or my personal favourite is take a picture of the box in the field, and the geotag will tell you exactly which unit you've drilled where.
And one last point, what about when you're using a smart variety?
For Conviso varieties, obviously hygiene's even more important. Again, I bang this drum quite a lot. Drilling conventional seed that might be left in the bottom of the drill in a field destined for a Conviso 1 herbicide will be very obvious because it will all die. So that's embarrassing for all concerned. But equally, drilling out dregs of a Conviso variety in a conventional field, whilst we would hope everyone's pulling bolters, etc., we don't want Conviso weed beet appearing in a field that might never have had Conviso seed in it before. So just making sure that's completely cleaned out should stop that ever happening.
That's great. So I think that's a quick whistle-stop tour of drilling. And if people want to see any more, there's a video that's available on our website. Please take a look at that, and you'll hear more from us when it comes to drilling with our future delivery of Beat Your Best. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Jez.
Some great advice there from Stephen, the head of field operations for BBRO. But while he leads on strategy, there's a whole team delivering the practical elements of trials. I had a brief conversation with Field Trials Site Manager Richard Hastings regarding his current to-do list.
Richard, while all the growers are waiting for drilling to start, you've been busy in the Bexwell yard. What have you been doing?
So we've been working on the harvesters, getting them washed down and serviced after the season. Got a few parts to change, wearing parts and other jobs to do, so we're trying to get them done now so we can remember exactly what needs doing. So we're just finishing off maintenance on the drills. We did a fair bit over the summer, but there's just a few bits we're waiting for parts to arrive and things, so we're just finishing getting them ready. So we're ready to go in a couple of weeks' time.
It's all about preparation, isn't it?
That's it, yeah.
And with this lovely weather, what about the weather stations?
We've also been just working on them, doing a few improvements and upgrades and repairs to one or two, getting them ready for crop watch. So they'll be going out fairly shortly.
When you say upgrades, what have you actually done to them?
There's been some new sensors, improved sensors made available to us. We've been changing them and working on the rainfall measuring cup.
So we could hopefully have even better data coming forward for 2026.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Now, I know we've had a couple of reasonably nice days, and I know you've also been out in field doing something just a little bit different.
Yes, we've been putting the frames up for our polytunnels ready for the drought trial. So we move them to fresh ground every year. So we've just been getting the frame constructed and ready.
When you say constructed and ready, what about the plastic coatings? I know that can be a bit of a job, can't it?
Yeah, we've got a very still and calm day for that. And we leave that until after we've actually drilled the beet. So that'll be in a few weeks' time.
Now, dare I ask why it has to be a calm day?
Well, the plastic acts like a big sail. The plastic is 8 meters wide and 56 meters long. So we've had problems in the past with the slope breeze, and people have a job hanging on the plastic. So it has to be absolutely perfectly still.
I know I do like to have different kind of branding and stuff, but maybe a BBRO kite is not what we want to see across Norfolk, is it?
No, not really. No, indeed.
Well, I'll let you get on, and good luck for getting the drills out and ready.
Thanks, cheers.
Thanks, Richard.
I hope you've enjoyed our 50th edition of BeetCast. And if you want to know more about drilling, see our website for the drill training video and fact file mentioned by Stephen. Or if you fancy becoming part of the BBRO field team, check out the careers page for our field operators role. Well, that's all from us this month, and look forward to speaking to you again in mid-March. Thank you very much for listening.